Hey there. Tonight, we're easing back to the 1800s winter trails to see what it was like to sleep in a covered wagon during a blizzard, a careful system of placement, layering, and watchfulness that turned minimal tools into workable warmth on a wagon bed barely wider than a mattress, with dim lantern glow on canvas, the slow creak of wooden bows, and cold air edging the seams. Tonight is a house folded onto wheels. If this channel helps you unwind, tap like and subscribe so it can find you again on the next late night when your mind needs a soft landing, and hold this odd truth in mind. Snow, the supposed enemy, sometimes became the quiet insulation that saved sleep. Drop a quick comment with where you're listening from and what time it is, whether it's 9 p.m. in Ohio or 2 a.m. in Manila. Let your shoulders settle and your jaw unclench as the soft whir of your fan mixes with the room's low light. Take one slow breath in and one out. All right, let's step to the edge of that canvas and lift it. Canvas bows over you while the wind leans on the wagon ribs. Wood creaks, a steady note that comes and goes. You are on the floorboards. The cover sifts a little snow at the seams, then holds. The wagon feels still under the gusts. A tin lantern hangs from a bough, just above eye level. Its flame is small and steady, and you hear the faint hiss of a lantern wick. Light warms the canvas to a dull gold. Bedrolls sit tight along the sideboards, quilts on top, robes below. The wagon is a suitcase you sleep inside. You brush loose snow from your boots at the tailgate. The flakes turn to water that bites your fingers. The boots go under a bench so they do not freeze solid. A rag goes in each toe. The bench holds tin plates and a kettle, now stowed low so nothing shifts if the wind jars the box. A parent tests the rear flap with 2 fingers. The tie holds, but a thin stripe of air moves there. They count breaths in the wagon, one by one, from the littlest to the oldest. A mitten finds a quilt edge and pulls it higher under a chin. The light is turned down a notch to save oil. Outside, the animals work the cold with slow breath. A horse shifts and the rope line taps a post. You hear the tap and a snort, and then quiet again. Harness hangs high on a peg to keep off frost. Straps would stiffen if left low on the floor. A scrap of cloth fills the drafty seam, and a slit is left high for breath. A cup of water sits upside down to guard the mouth from ice. A warmed stone rides in a sock at the foot of a pallet. The lantern set, the flap tied, the boots placed. This night is planned, not guessed, and sleep waits within reach. Now that you're settled inside, see how they made this box livable. Knees land on rough boards under a low sweep of canvas. Wind pushes on the cover in slow breaths while the bows give a small creak. Headroom is tight, so you shuffle on knees and hands to start the bed. Oiled canvas carries a sharp smell. A thin cold steals in along the seams where fabric meets wood. A palm presses the canvas. It flexes and returns. Wooden bows arch overhead like ribs. The canvas cover stretches over them and turns open air into a shell. The wagon box sits below, about 4 feet wide and 10 feet long under most covers. Narrow side benches run the length along each wall. Those benches are storage chests with tight lids, and they are narrow. Bedding goes on the floor between the benches, not on top of them. Bodies fit where the boards are widest, so shoulders go between the benches and feet point toward the tailgate. Tall people draw their knees a little. A small child can curl on a bench lid if a strap or board keeps them from sliding. Seams run along each bow and around the tailgate. Small gaps live there no matter how you pull the ties. Because wind finds gaps at seams, therefore quilts are tucked to plug drafts. A quilt or a robe also rides the floor edge as a draft stopper. A quilt edge wedges into a gap near a bow, and the corner holds when the cover lifts. Rolled bedding fills the line above the tailboard, so night air has fewer paths. It's like sleeping in a pickup bed under a tight tarp. Any talk of square footage turns into wishful math. The wagon box is a set of parts that you arrange. Benches lift as lids to swallow gear, so the floor clears for pallets. Boards laid across the benches make a shelf for a child, or a wider headrest. Crates and a barrel brace the foot end to keep quilts from creeping when the box tilts. Spare canvas hangs from a bow as a short curtain, and a rope across two bows can hold a blanket wall. A lantern hooks from a bow, giving a dim circle on the canvas. Heat rises to the ridge while the cold pools at the floor, so you stack straw, then a tick, then quilts to raise you above the chill. The driver's seat at the front gets a flap too, so the nose of the wagon closes like the back. Canvas and boards make a room inside the cover, but it is not a cabin by itself. The wagon is a modular space that works only when you give each part a job. The more you tune the pieces, the more the space behaves. Now, place the wagon where the wind will do the least harm. A teamster steps down first and turns a cheek into the air to feel where it bites. Snow squeaks under boots near the wagon tongue. A steady hiss rides the gusts. Wind presses coats flat, then slackens a beat. A hand lifts to point, not for drama, but to mark the shelter side. People watch the grass tops and the canvas edges to confirm the line of flow. A rise or a brush line becomes the goal once the wind shows its hand. Leeward ground behind a low swell or a patch of willow gives the wagons a back. Because the windward blast steals heat, therefore camps tuck behind rises. Drivers angle wagons so the canvas backs sit to leeward. Tongues face into the opening, where teams can be brought round in the morning. If the space is open, wagons form a circle or a partial arc as a windbreak, like a cupped palm around the fire and the bed wagons. Canvas pulls tight and brush rattles a little less in that pocket. It's like parking nose out before a storm for an easy exit. The opening in the ring points where drift will be light and the path out is clear. A scenic horizon would be nice, but it loses hard to survival math tonight. Children and bedrolls stay toward the middle of the shelter, away from the gaps. Animals get tied on the leeward side of the wagons, or within the arc, so their bodies block air and they do not grind against the canvas. Lanterns move low and close as people check the lines in the space between wheels. Snowbanking starts as soon as the wagons stand. Shovels scrape, or boots kick, and packed snow mounds up around the wheels and along the lower canvas. A thin drift is not the enemy here. Snow makes a decent quilt if you place it right. Folks tamp it firm to seal the gaps where spokes and hubs leave little tunnels. That banking and the angled wagons cut the drafts inside in a way you can feel with your palm. Canvas pops less, bows creak less, and the lantern flame steadies. Space still matters inside this windshell. People leave a small leeward gap in the circle to keep smoke and breath from choking the pocket. Firewood gets stacked where wind cannot steal the kindling. Tools and lines get set where you can find them with numb fingers. Blocking the wind is half the work. Making safe heat is the other half. With the wind under control, the next job is adding warmth without inviting disaster. A small sheet iron stove or brazier sits on packed ground by the wagon wheel. You feed in a twist of paper and a few splinters. The iron ticks as it takes the flame, and a soft orange settles under the lid. A curl of smoke slips toward a stitched flap. A vent flap, or a peephole, is held open with a peg, just enough to pull. You watch the thread of smoke lean to that gap, then steady. The canvas sways a little as wind presses, and the flap answers with a light tap. Because sealed canvas traps fumes, therefore a vent is cracked deliberately. Like running a tent heater, you crack air or you regret it. Heated stones or bottles wrapped in cloth ride in from the fire. You roll a stone in a spare towel and slide it down by your feet. You fill a stout bottle with hot water, wrap it in a sock, and tuck it near your ankles. Warmth pools near ankles, but air stays cool above. The weight feels steady and harmless, like a pet curled at the end of the bed. You keep the stove small. The wagon boughs are wood. The cover is oiled canvas. A tin shield or a scrap of green hide sits between heat and wall, and the stove stands on a flat pan of dirt to stop sparks biting the floorboards. You check the pipe joints with a damp fingertip. Any leak is fixed with a strip of cloth and a wire twist. Warmth is not worth a headache that bites back. Smoke tells you how the air moves. If it builds under the roof, you open the flap more. If the flame gutters, you nudge the vent closed a thumb. Your goal is a slow draft, just enough to sip the fumes out and bring a straw of cold air in. That cold edge is the price of safety, and it keeps the air from going stale. You can hear the tiny draw like a sleeping nose. Brazier users work the same dance. Coals carried in a lidded pan glow dull and hot. The pan stands low, away from canvas and bedding, with a shovel and a water dipper waiting. You lift the lid to feed in a coal, then shut it again, and you crack the peephole wider to give the smoke an exit. If the brazier smokes, it goes out of the wagon until the fire is clean. Nobody argues with the wind on that call. Feet win the heat, not the roof. You line the wagon floor with a canvas ground sheet or a buffalo robe. Then the hot stones sit in a wooden box so they do not singe anything. Bottles get checked for tight corks. They tuck into the bed near toes and knees, sometimes one at the belly for a slow core warm. When a bottle cools, it moves to the side. You do not chase a hot cabin. You build a warm pocket around your body. The vent flap stays open even when the wind shakes the canvas. If the air cuts too sharp, you hang a small cloth across the opening, pinned with a button and a twig, so it baffles the gusts, but still breathes. The stove runs low, more ember than flame, and you sleep within layers. Tiny heat plus airflow beats blazing heat plus risk. Now and then, you bank the stove and let it die before midnight, then rely on the stones and bottles to carry you through. The wagon keeps a cool top and a warm nest below, which keeps heads clear when morning comes. The lantern agrees with this plan. It hangs low and away from the cover, turned down to a shy glow. You count your tools again without getting up. Vent held, pipe tight, stones wrapped, bottle corked. The metal stops ticking as the heat steadies, and the canvas relaxes as if it, too, has settled its shoulders. A curl of smoke slips toward a stitched flap, and you let the small draft hum. Exhale and settle. Take one calm breath before we stack the bedding. Take a slow breath you can count. Inhale through your nose for 4. Exhale for 6. Quiet and easy. Lantern glow softens against the canvas curve. Let the air be cool at the tip of your nose, warm as it leaves. Let your ribs move like a small tide. Set your mind on 3 anchors that hold the night steady. Wind placement puts the wagon's back to the gusts, so the push hits the canvas where it can flex. Vented warmth lets heat rise and drift, so air stays safe to breathe even while it stays kind. Tight seams pinch shut the edges, so the draft slides past instead of in. Because wind placement turns a shove into a glancing push, therefore the space inside stays calmer. Hear the wooden bows give one small, patient creak, and then quiet. Hold the recap like 3 knots you can check. Windbreak along the wagon's side, vented warmth up high, tucked quilts holding in the low heat. Let your mouth relax, your jaw soften, your shoulders loose inside the coat of sleep. Let the tongue rest. Let the hands go heavy. Now inhale through your nose for 4. Exhale for 6, longer and low. Let the lantern's small circle be enough for now. No more effort needed. The pace will stay steady, and nothing urgent is waiting in this night. Wind becomes a faraway hush rather than a shove. Canvas barely stirs. Give yourself one more easy breath and a comfortable swallow, like tucking the last fold of cloth before you turn in. Now, let's build the bed that actually holds the heat. Your hands shove clean straw into a canvas tick. You shake the corners until the rustle evens out, then tie the mouth and thump it flat with your fists. The prick of a stray stalk touches your wrist. You slide the straw tick onto the wagon boards and tug a buffalo robe over it, hair side up for grip. Then lay 2 wool blankets smooth and ready. A straw tick or a feather tick sits as the base, depending on what the family could bring or trade. A feather tick rides softer, but straw is cheap and dries faster if it gets damp. The clean, oily smell of wool sits in the cold air. A wool edge overlaps another, sealing a narrow seam. Think of it like building a lasagna, where layers do the real work. Clothing shifts from day to night without a fuss. Shirts stay on, trousers stay on, and shawls become wraps for knees and shoulders. A sleeping cap and extra stockings are not a luxury at all. Fashion gives up quick when warm toes and a covered head win the argument. 2 sleepers line up under the same cover, or 3 if space demands it. Adults often go along the sides, children in the middle, and pairs turn head to toe to keep shoulders from opening a cold gap. Faces turn slightly apart to keep breath from wetting the wool. The plan works because bodies make small heat. Therefore, layers trap air pockets that hold it. Weight matters more than show. A buffalo robe goes on top if you have one, then a thick wool blanket, then any quilt, and a lighter shawl to seal edges near the neck. Hands fold under armpits, or into mittens slipped off in the night and kept inside the covers. The wagon bows creak a little as the canvas tenses, and the blankets answer with a small, comforting pull. Feet get special care. A warm stone wrapped in cloth settles near your feet. That heat is steady for a while, and it can mean the difference between pain and sleep. Extra wraps below quilts protect ankles and toes, so a child might wear 2 pairs of stockings and then a square of blanket, folded only for the lower legs. Hot stones come from the cook fire or the coals banked in a pit by the wheel, and someone moves fast so the warmth is not lost to the wind. Edges are where the blizzard tries to get in, so everyone becomes a tailor for a minute. Fingers pinch and roll the sides of blankets, and any spare scarf becomes a narrow gasket. The smallest gap is where a night can leak, so a hand checks along backs and hips until the tuck feels right. The canvas above pops softly under a gust, and the cover answers by holding shape. Children know the drill by the second storm. Boots set near the tick to block drafts. Wet socks hung near a lantern until they steam a little, then swapped for dry ones, tucked into bed. A cap pulled down to the eyebrows keeps ears warm and hair from frosting. You keep one eye on breath and one on the stack of covers. You listen for the shift that means someone is losing the tuck, or the soft complaint that means a stone has cooled. Once the bodies settle, the wagon becomes a low, slow oven. Heat traps in the air pockets you built, and skin finds it inch by inch. Once tucked, someone still has to watch the night. The rest is built, but it only holds if a watcher keeps it from coming apart. A mitten taps the canvas. Loose snow whispers down. You lift the blanket edge, and a warm shape slips back into your spot while you sit up and pull on boots. The family keeps a rotating watch, a duty schedule held in heads or scratched on a bit of paper. The lantern throws a dim glow against the canvas. The wooden bows give a small creak under the weight. A faint jingle carries from the picket line. A distant coyote barks. Then the sound drops away, like a door closing. A low snort from an ox steams in the cold air. You listen for any shuffle that does not fit the night. The leather and rope answer soft and even. The watcher checks the animals first. Horses and oxen stand on the picket line, and a few are staked out on longer leads to keep them settled. Knots get a hand pressed to them. Halters get a quick look for rub or ice. Ropes are lifted and shaken free of drift, so no foot traps form by morning. You circle back to the wagon and tap the canvas between the wooden bows with your mitten or a stick. Little taps knock snow off so it cannot sag and strain the frame. The firebox gets the last look. Coals are stirred and banked with ash for control instead of flare, so heat lasts without a rush of flame, because livestock mean tomorrow's movement. Therefore, someone checks them in turns. That rule sits even deeper in winter. A slack tie can turn into a broken line. A drift can become a roof bend. The ember that glows now should glow later too. Like babysitting your only car battery in a deep freeze. On nights like this, heroism looks a lot like staying awake politely. Banked coals heat the small space steady and slow. Ash makes a firm lid that keeps sparks down and warmth in. A slit of venting stays open near the ridge so smoke can wander out, and the lantern is trimmed low to spare fuel. You keep the canvas tight where it laces, then let it hang free where it must, so wind pressure does not turn into a tear. Snow that slides off lands with a soft puff. Snow that clings gets a second, patient tap. These checks repeat in a quiet loop. One set of hands goes out, and another settles in, and the line holds through the gusts. A problem caught small stays small. A fraying knot gets replaced before a hoof finds it. A bough that starts to bend sheds its load before it groans. The air stays warm enough to sleep, not hot enough to smoke you out. The smell of char is mild. The frost on the canvas keeps its pale crust. You trade places again without talk. Your body finds the warm dent you left, and the next watcher eases past the quilt roll and out into the white hush. Take another breath. Then listen to the wagon's winter soundtrack and let the sounds and the frost show you what the canvas is doing. Set your shoulders down into the quilts. Take an easy inhale for 5. Let the air out for 7, and let your chest soften. Do that once more. Inhale for 5. Exhale for 7. You have time. The body knows this count by now. If a board feels hard, shift a little and find the softer fold. The canvas holds a low hush, and the lantern gives a dim glow. Hands check the tucked edge, then rest. The routine stays steady. Check, rest, check again. And tiny tasks keep the night friendly. Layers, watches, small, steady fixes. You trust the setup because layers trap heat and watches share the load. Therefore, the night feels manageable. A warmed stone wrapped in cloth cools near your feet. A parent notes the hour by lantern shadow. The entry flap sits pulled close. Wiggle your toes under the covers. Unclench your hands and let the fingers lie open. Feel wool brush skin and the blanket weight settle. The straw mattress gives a quiet rustle. Let the jaw go loose and let the tongue rest. The body does small work, and that is enough for now. Wind slides along the canvas and then eases. Let any worry drift out with that last burst of air. Frost lines sparkle faintly near a bough, and the light barely catches them. The tie, ropes stay snug, and the wheels sit chalked. The order you made earlier keeps its shape. Take one more quiet breath. Your breath curls and disappears into dim light. Then your ears find a slow creak from a bough. Listen again to the canvas, steady and plain. Quiet settles like a blanket. With calm back in place, notice what the cold is doing inside the wagon. Your fingertips brush the canvas just above your pillow. It gives a soft crackle as frost breaks. A thin rim of ice outlines a seam. A drip is caught by a folded kerchief. The wooden bows creak once. Warm breath fills the small space with damp air. Because warm breath hits cold canvas, therefore frost forms and later drips. The roof skin sits near outside temperature, so crystals build in a skim on the inside face. Moist air rides up to the high curve, so the thickest rime grows along the ridge where your breath drifts. With a lantern lit, the small flame adds a bit of heat and extra vapor, so frost thins right above it and thickens toward the sides. By morning, the layer can be thick enough to scrape with a fingernail. Travelers knew this interior frost from breath condensation was routine on hard nights. An inner liner or drip cloth hangs just under the cover. It might be a spare wagon sheet, a length of muslin, or an old quilt. It catches melt and sends it to the sides where it can miss faces and pillows. Some wagons used a ridge rope or small slats so the liner sat clear and water could run in the gap between layers. If the liner sags, a peg or pin lifts a low spot to form a small gutter. Families set the bedding with a slight tilt by rolling a glove or a small stick under the outer edge. That small wedge makes water choose the floor, not the pillow. A tin cup can stand under a stubborn spot to keep one plank from getting slick. Before sleep and near dawn, someone gives the canvas a quick shake or a light tap on the boughs to shed frost while it is still dry. At first light, whatever fell into the blankets gets hustled out the flap before it melts. Forget once, and midnight surprises pick your forehead every time. Kerchiefs wait along the ridge and at each pillow. They catch the odd drip and keep a wet spot from spreading. A child may press a finger to the liner to feel the crunch, then stop when when a parent whispers, "Not to break the crust." Like a hot shower, fogging a cold mirror. Then a chilly drip. Some families crack the leeward end of the wagon sheet for a thumb of airflow, so vapor can escape without letting the wind straight in. Wet mittens stay down by a coat or near a warm body, not near the roof, since one steaming cuff can soak a corner by itself. If the wind slackens, the liner gets a shake outside to throw off ice that built during the night. These small steps work. Beds stay mostly dry and warm enough to use again when the wheels turn. You still wake to a few flakes on the blanket, but the big soak does not come. Pillows dry fast if a drip finds them, and the floorboards take what runs off the liner. Simple liners and quick shakes keep beds dry enough to sleep. With the small annoyances managed, turn to the quieter hazards that need a plan, not panic. Snow lands on the canvas with a soft thump. The wagon skin droops a finger's width, then springs as the ridge sheds weight. Snow thuds softly as a ridge unloads. The wind presses the cloth like a steady hand, and the boughs answer with a quiet creak. A faint, acrid whiff slides from the coal pan. A hand lifts the pan a crack, checks the glow, and slides it farther from the bedding. A vent flap gets nudged wider. The warmth dips and steadies, and the air turns cleaner. A mitten or a pole taps the wooden bows, one rib, then the next. Because wet snow loads the cover, therefore someone taps ribs to shed weight. The canvas shivers off its burden, and the wagon stands lighter, like knocking slush off a car roof before it slides forward. Small vents stay open at the peak and down near the floor. Heads feel heavy when air turns foul. Headaches and dizziness are the warning signs of carbon monoxide, so the fix is simple and fast. If necks ache and the air feels stale, they crack the vents wider and pull the heat in closer with extra quilts. Sparks pop from a small stove or a lantern when gusts push through the seams. The fix sits within reach. An ember pan or a lid waits to smother small flames before they grow. A lid kisses metal and snuffs a stubborn ember. A damp cloth sits ready, and a scoop of clean snow sits near the door. Ropes hum softly where they tie the canvas. A broom leans by the flap for the next round of tapping. Out here, bravery looks like a broom and a lid. Hands move in short habits, not loud heroics, and the quiet work keeps sleep possible. A child stirs and settles as the wagon shifts. A parent listens for the pitch of the wind and the tone of the creak. Gear stays packed tight to keep space clear for knees and quick steps. The floor stays dry with a layer of sacks, so a spill can be sopped fast. The bedrolls ride high off the boards on straw or folded clothing. That layer keeps backs from the cold plank bite. An iron pot sits cool by the wall, ready to cover any surprise flame. Water sits capped so it cannot slosh near the coals. The chores are small and steady, and each one trims a risk. A quiet check goes down the row of faces. If someone's breath feels hot or their cheeks turn too red, the flap opens another inch. If someone coughs, the coal pan goes out into the snow for a while. No one waits for a drama scene. The fixes land before trouble gathers. Each small sound has a meaning, and each meaning has a simple answer. Thumps ask for tapping. Bitter air asks for venting. A hiss asks for a lid. The rules are short enough to remember in the dark. The payoff is plain. Small tools and steady habits turn big dangers into brief interruptions. The canvas keeps out the worst, and the people inside keep the rest in line. Sleep returns after each check, like a door closing softly behind you. By first light, frost rings the walls and the quilts wear a crisp edge. Ice tightens straps and stiffens the leather traces. The stove wants scraping, the wheels want coaxing, and the oxen will need careful hands. The night holds. Now meet the careful thaw of morning. A gloved knuckle scrapes the rim of the wagon, knocking off the little collar of ice that built up in the night. The sound is small and sharp, like a spoon against a cup. Breath hangs in the air. Canvas cracks quietly as the wind tests it. A small pan hisses once it meets the coals. Stiff leather gives a tired creak as straps are tugged free and flexed. Wooden bows add their slow complaint. Heat and sound start to push the edge off the cold. The bit is cold iron. If you have horses, it gets tucked under a coat or into a mitten for a minute so it does not bite a mouth. Ox yokes and collars get the same treatment, hands rubbing warmth into the leather, then into fingers. Buckles and lines that froze are worked near the heat, not too close, just enough to free them. Straps are bent and straightened so they remember how to move. Tallow or grease gets pressed into the wheel hubs. A handful is worked into the cap, then turned, then checked again. Snow is kicked out from the spokes in the shoes. The wagon tongue is cleared, and any pins are knocked loose and tapped back in. Lines get stretched in the air to chase off stiffness, and knots are retied clean. Teams stand hip to hip while the driver checks their breath and ears. Because axles and tongues resist when frozen, therefore teams are eased gently, like coaxing an old laptop on a cold morning. No button mashing. Breakfast runs quick. Breakfast is more strategy than cuisine. Coffee is the fast fix, poured hot with cornmeal mush thickening beside it. Steam lifts from a tin cup into pale morning. If there is bacon, the fat does double duty on a hinge or a latch. Hands wrap the cups as much for warmth as for taste. Harness and hands are warm now, so the hitching starts. One person holds ahead and talks low. Another settles the collar and checks the fit. Lines are set in hand. A last look goes to the wheels and the ground, watching for ice under a boot. The first pull comes soft, with a cluck or a quiet G. A wheel groans, then turns smoother on the second pull. The driver gives them a few steps to wake the joints and settle into the traces. The wagon moves, then moves better. Any rattle that sounds wrong is heard fast at this speed. Cold breakfasts can be fancy. This is not that. Cornmeal and coffee mean the fire did its job and kept the people moving, which is the point. The pan is wiped, the lid is tied, and the shovel knocks snow from the coals. The coals are smothered or carried to the next stop in a lidded pot if the day will be hard. A slow start looks fussy. It is actually a kind of insurance. Hubs stay tight, tongues stay straight, animals stay willing, and the day adds miles without a broken part stealing the sun. The system held through the storm. That was the point. Let the trail stretch ahead, while the night's lessons stay tucked in. Thank you for sharing that wagon's narrow warmth and those careful habits. It took a small space and steady hands to make it work. The lantern's dim ring on canvas and the slow creak of wood made it a pocket of weather inside a storm. Thank you for bringing your calm to a hard night. Small routines beat big storms more often than not. A place for each body and layers set in order did a lot. A quiet watch helped turn canvas and cold into honest rest. That was the quiet win, repeated night after night when it had to be. It was not magic. just steady choices made in the right order. Small steps, taken one after another, made a hard thing possible. Lantern glow fades back into your room's low light and breath. Notice how warmth holds without worry here. You are allowed to rest now. Let that contrast be easy. Let your jaw loosen, like a knot set free. Let the day unclasp and set itself down. Your tongue can rest low. Your shoulders can settle. You do not have to hold anything right now. If this kept you company, a quiet like or subscribe is welcome, only if it feels easy. It helps this little corner stay steady for the next night. If not, no worries at all. Take only what you need from nights like this. May your sleep be one calm stretch and your morning be simple. Wake with a clear head and shoes ready by the door. Let morning meet you on simple terms. May your room stay warm and quiet until morning. Good night.